you guys are not too tired from the whole day of jam-packed information, right? I'm sure it has been a really interesting session. I'm sure it's been a really interesting day. I will try to keep mine as simple and straightforward as possible. Happy to take any questions. Thanks for the introduction, Andreas. And I am also willing to go into some of my observations about what happened pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID. I do think that has come up quite a lot before. So if there's interest from the ground, if it comes down in Q&A later, I'm happy to dive more into it. But for my prepared presentation, I'll focus a bit more about what's happening this year. Yeah? So, if you go to the slides, quick introduction to Shopee. I know you all just heard about Shopee from my colleague Shopee. But in true Shopee sense, one of our marketing mantra is to just overdo. So maybe some of you will recognize that if you go to a mama shop, you will hear the Shopee from there, right? Or if you go to My News, you'll hear the jingle. Or if you remember the Shopee song of some of you may even remember we getting Ronaldo to dance to the Shopee song. A lot of it, for some of us, depending on your age group, can actually be fairly, I don't want to put a word to it, but then it does stick, right? A lot of the things that we try to do in marketing is that does it stick? And all the things we have done throughout the years, and it's not that many years actually, because Shopee is fairly young. It's still a fairly young brand. We take it for granted sometimes, but we're fairly young. As Andreas was saying, e-commerce wasn't even a big thing just 5 years ago. Today, we are in 8 countries, mainly in Southeast Asia. We are #1 in Southeast Asia and Taiwan as a shopping app. And we are very excited about some of the awards that we have won. Just to highlight 2. Last year, we did get award for the strongest Malaysian brand by Kanta for lifestyle app and for general retailer, right? And from the YouGov global ranking, we got ranked in Malaysia #1. And if you look at the cohorts of brands that we are in, it's an achievement that we are very excited about, right? Anecdotally as well, to that point, to the same ranking, they do for every country, they look at global as well. So the global ranking, across all categories, not just e-commerce, across all categories, just looking at the strength of the brand, Shopee is actually #5 globally. So we are very excited, very happy with that result, and it takes years of brand building to get there, right? It takes years of creating top of mind awareness to our buyers in all our market to get there. And while I was on this topic, I realized there was a question before from the ground about free shipping. And I would like to answer that question as well, right? It's interesting that question came up. As a marketer, I'm happy to hear what people view the brand as, right? What we are doing in the app is that actually, since a few weeks now, actually more than a month now, we have been trying to strengthen our top of mind in terms of free shipping, right? To make free shipping synonymous with Shopee, because we know that matters a lot to our buyers. So, if you go to Shopee app right now, you will actually see that it's called unlimited free shipping. Right? The whole branding is called Hari Hari free shipping. 100% free shipping. No minimum spend. Unlimited. Right? It's called unlimited, but basically you're just given a bunch of vouchers every day. I'll challenge you to finish it up. It's almost impossible. Now, but we still get that question. Like, why did Shopee remove free shipping? So there's a disconnect, right? When you see that as a marketer, it's very interesting because I'm pushing it very strongly. I even have a TV commercial going to come up live next month, right? I have it all across social media, right? I even pay KOLs to talk about it, right? But still, messages doesn't get through very quickly. In fact, it's very hard to educate a market of millions on one thing. It takes time, it takes consistency. And that's why when it comes to messaging, when it comes to communication, when it comes to branding, consistency actually matters a lot. And when I get feedback like that, it's very interesting to me because maybe I'm not doing enough, right? So, continuing on that part, right? If I were to go a bit deeper to about Shopee and look at some of the trends that we have been noticing in Malaysia, right? I won't read through the numbers one by one. You can see it there, right? But I do get a lot of questions about how it is now, this year, compared to years before, especially pandemic years. And a quick answer to that is that what has strictly changed between, say, MCO period and the current period is where people spend their money, right? When you are in MCO, you can't even travel. So a lot of people, there was a lot of savings. A lot of it was channeled to online, right? So the perception or the question that I usually get is that how is it then, right? You know, it opens up, you know, people are buying offline. How does it look like? Now, I would think that the wallet share from a point of view online versus offline right now, we can call it just normalized, right? Just normalized in the sense of there are things that people want to buy offline, there are things that people want to buy online, and we all know it's a multiple touch point thing. Sometimes you look at it offline, online, then you make a decision. Now, however, the key thing that has remained is that if you look at all our buyers, even with normalization, even with things opening up, even with travel coming back, the behavior of shopping online maintains. The adoption of e-commerce by buyers maintains. If I look at the user base that we have on Shopee, it grew massively during the pandemic, and then it stays, it continues to grow, right? The monthly active users that we have, daily active users that we have continues to grow. So that user engagement, the user behavior of browsing online, shopping online, engaging online stays, right? It's just the preference upon where they actually conduct their purchases may vary. And that varies based on category, based on demography, based on where you are, based on region. We can go very granular into data on that, right? But by and large, if you look at across the country, rural, urban, young, even older folks, that sense that e-commerce is not just niche, it's not just for the occasional purchase, but it's more and more a lifestyle. More and more, you don't think it of a separate thing, you think of it as just another channel for retail. It's actually very much embedded into a lot of mind of our users now, right? And we notice a lot younger users as well. And this part, I think, is very interesting, right? If you look at new to market, who are the new spenders? Now, as marketers, I'm sure you all spend a lot of time understanding your buyers, you know, the audience that your brand is trying to serve, and you get a good sense of, you know, what's their consideration, how their funnel looks like, what they think about, how they behave. Now, but new buyers, people new to the industry, new to the ecosystem, right? I'm talking people in the college, right? Or even just getting into college, right? People just starting to work. That generation, honestly, I don't know where we draw the lines on Gen Z, millennial, or whatever, I don't know. But you know, the younger people now, who are basically on their phone all the time, right? And the way they think about things and the way they engage with a seller on how they understand a product actually is very different from, say, how we understand even just e-commerce buying purchases just a few years ago, right? And a lot of us may just sit around and think that, oh, okay, to engage younger buyers, we need to do this, we need to do that, without actually talking to them. And I think generally that's probably something we should avoid, because that rise of younger buyers, them moving into working population as well, them being digital natives, they grew up in the internet era, they've never been disconnected in their whole life. They were born into full internet coverage 24/7, right? never been disconnected in their life. They are true digital natives. These are the guys now graduating, right? They are coming into the market as purchasers, and the way they interact is very different. An example of that is the growth of live streaming that my colleague mentioned earlier. Live streaming is something that has been around in some other countries, especially China. It was very notable, right? And in China, for example, if you study the market there, they have some live streamers who are so popular they can sell anything, and brands pay money to the live streamer to sell their product, right? Now, different market will develop very differently because this phenomena is not there in USA, for example, right? Different market will adapt quite differently. Now, where would Malaysia go from here? In terms of e-commerce as a whole, our adoption is getting a lot more mature, is getting there as a penetration of total retail, is been increasing a lot year on year. But in terms of live streaming as an e-commerce channel, it's fairly early days, right? You see it on different platforms trying to do more. We've been trying to push a lot more of it as well. It caters to a certain demography, caters to a certain way of consideration that the younger buyers especially wants to have, right? But when we think further into it as well, you want to understand whether this ecosystem will actually grow. Then you'll need to understand the driver behind the potential growth of this ecosystem, right? Same with e-commerce, for example. We'll just take a step back. The reason it became what it is today is because the ecosystem was built, that there are so many sellers, so many buyers, that the parcels that is generated, orders generated per day are in the millions. The unit economics works, and it became a whole network effect. Can the same thing happen to live stream, or is it just serving a very particular niche group of sellers, niche group of buyers? We don't really know. It can go either way, right? It can go very big. It can stop somewhere, right? And right now, a lot of it is driven by a group of early adopters and sellers who are innovating, right? And also supported by a lot of platforms such as ourselves, who's trying to grow it, so we put investments into it as well, right? One of the things I've been trying to market as well, and you'll see it every day, you'll see it tonight. If you open Shopee at 8 p.m., there's a new thing that I've been pushing. There's everything 50% off 8 p.m. onwards. Right? And but everything 50% off 8 p.m. onwards on Shopee Live. Right? And it's written clearly there, but it's to try to see whether we can grow this ecosystem for our sellers and for our buyers who want it. Right? And the way we do it is through vouchers, and we have abundance of 50% off vouchers, and buyers can interact with a lot of Shopee Live sellers, and we do it daily because you want to build a new behavior. You need to be very consistent again and very, very aggressive on it, right? So, high hopes on that, but that's one thing that we're trying to push as well. So, and that's in reaction to the rise of younger buyers. That's in reaction to the rise of new ways of engaging with the platform, because we have to continuously innovate, right? E-commerce is not just, listing it online and then just wait for sales, right? There's so many parts to it, as mentioned earlier by my colleagues as well. There's the advertising part, there is the ecosystem part, there's how you work with kiosks, there's how you do your pricing strategy, how you do your own messaging. So all this, I think we need to take into account. And also, another point to bring up besides younger buyers is actually rural buyers. So I don't know how many of you engages deeply with your rural buyer base. And maybe some of you do, and I think that's great if you do. And if you don't, it's a segment that should look at. And the reason being, the challenges that rural buyers have very different from urban buyers. And most often than not, and I fall at this sometimes out of myself as well, right? We like to sit in a nice ballroom in KL, right? Right in the city center, and think about brand marketing strategy, right? The reality that is faced in a small town in Kelantan, or a small town in Sabah, or a small town in Sarawak, or you go to Perak or Kedah, is very different. It's very, very different, and especially in a digital world where everything is connected, where the whole push of e-commerce is that anyone, everywhere can buy anything, same price, right? That accessibility, that sheer accessibility that the digital environment opens up for rural buyers is already game-changing for them, right? So their considerations can be massively different based on income level as well. And that nuanced understanding on the local level is actually very important. And going back to one of the questions from the earlier session as well, how do we differentiate ourselves from our competitors? It comes down to that. It comes down to how well we understand our users. It comes down to how much effort, care we invest into understanding every segment that we are serving, and not just come up with one blanket solution. Okay. And another trend that has been coming up, that I think has been talked about as well, that is the role of influencers in the digital economy space. Now, everyone has heard something about this, and I can stand here and talk about, oh, you can use influencers to do this, that, which is all true. Now, but you've heard all that before. The thing is, how do you define what an influencer is has also shifted. Coming back to the point, like in China, for example, there are some strong live streamers, they can run millions of sales in an hour because they are that strong an influencer, right? But there's also a scenario, which is a scenario we are experiencing a bit now in Malaysia, where rather than a short-tail environment of influencer, you have a long-tail environment of influencer. What does that mean? It means that a lot of these influencers, you may not know them. We may not actually know them because there are so many of them. But within the community that they have influence over, which can be a small community, but a niche community, they're actually very influential. They may not be famous in the sense of being Insta famous, but they could be very good specifically at a certain channel. For example, again, live stream. If you have seen certain live streaming now on any platform, including Shopee Live, you probably don't recognize the host. But is he an influencer? He is influencing you to buy. You don't know who he is. He never introduced himself. He's not trying to build a brand for himself, right? By streaming 10 hours a day, right? He's influencing people to sell on the live stream. So the way we understand influencers have to change a bit, because it's not just celebrities. It's not the same as celebrities. Celebrities lah. Influencers is different. There's many ways of engaging influencers, and there's many ways of incentivizing influencers to help your brand, right? And to do that at scale is very hard, because, as I say, if it's a longer tail game, where it's less about getting 2-3 big names and shout about your brand and end of story, but it's getting 10-20,000 people to talk about your brand in a way that they know relates to their community, about the values that your brand brings, about the message you want to get across in the local language, in the local nuance of how to message it. How would you do that? You can't write 20,000 different briefs. You can't, right? So that way of engaging the newer influencers now, and they change so fast. Who's famous today may not be famous tomorrow. Right? That landscape, if you spend, if you run a study, you take 2 months to understand who is who, and then you come up with another plan, how to engage them. 6 months has gone, they are no longer relevant. Maybe. That's the thing. That's how fast things are moving right now. Right? So, anything you want to do with influencers, actually, unless it's a traditional thing, like again, I say, you can still do it, get somebody already famous, make a post for you. I think, yeah, it kind of works, right? But then, what we're seeing more and more, if you want to be able to be able to connect very, very on a sort of ground level, on a grassroots level with your buyers, your customers, or even new customers, that capability to scale your messaging across a large swath of influencers, completely different type of influencers, different channels, it's actually important. It's growing as a new thing to think about, right? And why? Why is that important? Because, again, the buyers that we have today, they're digital native. A lot of them, they are more and more digital native. The way they interact right? It's not as simple as, oh, as long as I do A, they will buy, right? There's just so many ways for them to interact with your product, with your brand, to understand what you stand for, right? Unboxing videos, or description of products, right? Who is representing you, right? How you wrap your product, how and customer service, delivery experience, all that. So many things comes into consideration for your buyers, and it can be very nuanced. So don't have one size fit all. How do you have differentiated messaging, differentiated channels at scale, but still consistent? Consistent in what you want to say, what you want to stand for as a brand. That's a challenge. That's one of the key challenges of the digital age nowadays, right? And for us, if you look at it, there are many ways to look at it. One of it is trying to understand the values that your buyers hold, the values that your users hold dear and feel that they can relate to you on a personal level, right? And it can be, when I talk about this, the first thing that jumps to people's mind is like, oh, sustainability, right? Environmental friendly. Which is true, which is not wrong, which is also true, right? Now, but you do test groups and you do focus groups and you talk to people, right? And what you need to understand, actually, I think what we all need to understand, is actually that a lot of buyers will say certain things, a lot of your customers will say certain things. If you just ask them what do you want, they will tell you. It's much more important to see how they behave rather than what they tell you, right? And I'm a strong supporter of ESG, for example, right? I think all of us are, right? It's just from a business point of view, right? How much do we believe we can, be a champion of this whilst being relevant to our buyers? And that comes down to how much would they put their wallet on what they believe is important for them, right? And if we were just, there's a lot more nuance to this, but if we were just to look at it, what's still most important for them actually is very simple. It's very simple, is that, especially on the online space, I get what I bought. I buy something and I get exactly what I paid for, and maybe slightly more. That trust factor is a lot more important, actually, first and foremost. The trust factor is a lot more important. I think a lot of brands are saying, building that trust with your client, with your customers, with your buyers, first and foremost, still remains the most important thing, right? And then for us, for example, we have noticed that a lot of our buyers like to support local sellers. They actually much prefers buying it from local sellers. And I think that is relatable because, I can talk to the seller in my own language, I know where you are, I can get the delivery faster, and if there's any problem, I think, everything is negotiable, discussable, right? Then we see, with everything of those are kicked, right? Then, okay, there are certain segment of users who actually would be willing to pay a bit more, if the product is, a sustainable product, the packaging is done in a more sustainable way, right? Or they want to donate to their causes. Okay? We do see that, right? It's growing and it's great. It's great for the site as a whole, for the community as a whole, right? Now, but there are multiple things. And they hold different priority on your customer's mind. And it's not one persona, right? It's not one persona that you have. It's not like, my buyer is always like this. As long as trust first, this first, that first, tick, 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 then it's okay. It doesn't work that way. Because you have a lot of buyers with different personas. Maybe there are some buyers who above all else cares about sustainability first and foremost, without even looking at anything else. Certain segment of it, right? There will be some that I will never buy from, a certain, or I'll never buy from the overseas sellers. Or I will only buy from overseas sellers. Or I will never buy unless it's like Shopee Mall guarantee, right? Different demography, different. Again, there's nuances there. Now, another layer to that nuance, just to make the question harder, right, is that even if you're able to segment your users into personas, you will still be wrong. You will still be wrong because you did not matrix it against the category upon which they are buying, right? The same person, same persona, this person When I buy a watch, when I buy milk powder for my kids, when I buy a shirt for myself, when I buy shoes, or I buy presents for other people, completely different consideration. Same person, but when you're buying a different thing for a different occasion at a different time, completely different consideration. And sometimes that understanding of these small nuances will determine whether the buyer buy from you or buy from someone else. Right? So it's a hard question. It's a very difficult question. And it's an evolving answer that makes it even harder because it changes, again, very quickly. But at the base of it, fundamentally, the base of it, again, coming down to all the consideration and everything, they have certain values. They do have certain values. They do have certain things that they value a lot more than other things. They may not say it to you because they don't really know. Even if you ask them, when you run surveys, they tell you certain things and you just execute through the survey and say, oh, it doesn't work. Right? Because they will tell you, they will actually genuinely believe that's what they want. But you need to see their behavior. You need to see their spending behavior and their touch points before they purchase, how they think about certain things. And that's actually where digital space comes into picture. Digital space as an e-commerce is not just a channel, but it's a channel that is completely data-driven. You have all the data, at least online, you track, you are able to see what interaction happens before any purchase happens. That feeds into your understanding of the behavior of your buyers. That builds a picture for you. It's never 100%. But that is a sense, a guide for how to understand your buyer. And you can have granularity in your data, not just granularity, but you have velocity of your data because it's fast. Right? You don't run 2 months surveys just to understand something. You see day to day, second by second, you understand what's happening. You know, users don't watch live stream before this time, for example. Right? Users will come at this time and look into this category of products. During weekend, this is what they are more interested in. During school holidays, they do this. During Raya, they do that. Right? Some are quite intuitive. Raya, buy more fashion. Intuitive. Right? But some are less intuitive. Some are not so clear. See? And the data part, I think, harvesting, or rather using the data to better serve your users, to better understand them, to have better value to your users, is extremely relevant. Right? And I recognize that I started by saying, oh, keep it straight and simple, and then I went on blah, blah, blah. So I apologize for that. So, but yeah, I think I'm coming to close to the end of my slides, my deck, right? This is just to show that the consideration when it comes to, buyers using their own values to determine what to buy happens across all categories. It happens across all categories. It happens offline, it happens online, right? And one of the things that we do in Shopee, for example, and what we want to continue to do, is we continue to believe that technology plays a strong part, right? Technology plays a strong part in terms of being able to customize, again, based on data that I've mentioned, to the preference of our buyers at scale. So it's not one person saying, oh, you need this, you need this, you need this. But, the technology behind it, right? The different ways that we engage with users, like Shopee Prices, Shopee Live, different engagement model that we have on the app, right? I have, led up to this point of hyper-localization as well, talking about how to understand your user base. When I say hyper-localization, I don't mean just Malaysians understanding Malaysian, I am Malaysian. But understanding to the level of, the different districts in different states, right? Like I would bring my team to Sabah, to Kelantan, and we'll go to smaller states, not just Kota Baru, right? We'll go to small town, right? We'll go to Keterek, for example, and see what's the life there, So rather than just going there and say, do you use Shopee? Why don't you use Shopee? I give you voucher use. Yeah, that's not the survey you want to do. You go to the ground and then you see how they live their lives, right? If you do this for one weekend, it's super useful, right? You go there and see they live their life. You talk to them. It's like, okay, so if you could build the rapport, how much do you earn a month? Where do you spend your money on? What's your biggest worries? Where do you buy your essentials, right? Oh, when you buy it from the local ringgit store, because that's the only store available, okay? But you like it? Doesn't have what I want, super pricey. Okay. But at least you understand what are the local problems that they are having, right? That's hyper-localization. Then you translate it into what you do, right? You translate it into the campaigns that we do. There are some that's more mass market, there's some that we just push across, right? 99, everyone, right? But then there are the smaller campaigns that we run, right? For example, we have specific Sabah and Sarawak campaigns that we do, right? We have certain campaigns that we do in certain languages because it reflects the languages that is more convenient for the user group that we want to target, right? So that enables it, but without that understanding, you don't know what problem you're solving. And then to a point on operational capability. Yeah, I've talked about marketing, about understanding your buyers and everything. Your buyers look at you as a whole, right? It's not just, the front end selling of it, it's not just closing the deal. But the best order is a recurring order. The best business is a business that has recurring orders, right? And that comes a lot down to your operations. And a lot of effort goes into there just to making sure that people get what they are supposed to get on time, pleasant service, right? And overall a good experience. And there will be problems. Especially at scale, there will be problems, right? How you treat your clients, how you treat your customers with respect and trying to solve the problem and trying to keep improving your service level will come across as part of your branding as well. That's what you do. Marketing is what you say you do. Operations is doing actually what you say you do, right? In a way. So, to end my slide, a quick case study. So, I think my colleague Shipping has shared some case study earlier as well. But this is also just another example of a brand working closely with us across multiple touch points, across external platforms, in Shopee platform itself as well, and just generating a lot of impressions very quickly, a lot of sales very quickly, and driving high awareness for their brand very quickly, right? So in digital space, what I tend to do is that we can have so many theories, we can have so many plans, and for some of your lucky ones who have watched Oppenheimer, you will remember the sentence of theory can only get you so far. And that's also true in marketing. Sometimes you try. And that's also the good thing about the digital world. You try, maybe you fail, but you learn. Then you try again, and you try again. And at some point, you find what works. And what works may not work forever. Again, demography changes. So you keep trying. But the feedback loop is really fast. That's the key. The feedback loop is really fast. You can reinvent, replan your campaign super fast. And that's one of the key things to do in digital e-commerce. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Happy to meet you.